Obviously, you see the teeth and stuff, right? Super touch sensitive, right? So I'm not doing anything aversive to this dog right now. This dog perceives that this is very aversive right now.
David, if you don't mind, we have a dog here, Kota.
Yeah.
She's pretty aggressive. Like, bad with people, bad with dogs.
Sure.
Really, really bad resource guard.
Yeah, yeah.
They've lived around her for 9 years.
Yeah.
Like, around her.
Uh-huh.
If they drop something, she'll go for them.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyone she's bit, stitches. And
Okay.
she's done multiple. We have her under control.
I understand.
Took me multiple days to put a muzzle on her. I'm just wondering if you were to get a dog over for board and train or something, if you guys are ever interested in having a dog over, that could be a little sketchy. What would your first day look like?
Yeah.
What would happen? How would you get the dog out the kennel? All
Yeah.
these things. You don't mind if we bring her out, right?
Yeah, yeah, bring her out. That's fine.
Great.
Okay, so when we have new board and trains that come in like this, I try, if I absolutely can, I try to make the owner put the muzzle on initially, right? That's first hack with it. Obviously, in this case, it sounds like the owners were pretty scared of the dog to begin with.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, maybe the ability to do that is not going to be quite as good as you want it to be. Second thing I do is I have them swap the dog out to wear a chain leash. And the reason I put a chain leash on a standard flat collar, and I'll have the dog wear that for like the first like 6 or 7 days. 100% of the time, right? So a lot of times when you get these dogs in, they'll react in the kennel and stuff, but usually getting them out of the kennel is the hardest part. They tuck themselves into the back of it and stuff. So making sure you have that chain leash on, you can get some of those grabbers, right? Grab that chain leash and you can just get the dog out. That kind of eliminates a lot of that conflict of needing to like get in and get a leash on the dog and pull the dog out and all that kind of stuff. So you can kind of sidestep a lot of conflict that way. If the owner is able to get the muzzle on, which I would say 99% of the time I could usually get him to put a muzzle on the dog, I get anything I need to get out of the way right at the beginning. So I'm testing everything. I'm testing handling them, grabbing them, touching their paws, putting them in the bathtub, getting them in and out of the kennel, you know, like.
And you do that immediately?
Yeah, first day. You know, first day I'm gonna just drill through all that kind of stuff, obviously, because I need to make sure I get this dog comfortable with me putting collars on them. I need to make sure if there's gonna be really big aversive responses and stuff like, oh, you already got the chain leash, look at that. I like it. Thank you.
So let's say she just arrived. She'll appear like someone, she's changing a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay, so we're good. So I'll kind of show you guys, and very nervous, obviously. A lot of times these dogs that put on a big front like that and are really dangerous and stuff, they are extremely nervous. It's very infrequent you're gonna run into like a truly, truly confident, aggressive dog, right? So, you know, this is the kind of stage in things where I'm just gonna start testing things, right? So right off the rip, do you happen to have a regular leash I could put on? Yeah. a little easier to manage. That is hilarious, though, that I said a chain leash and you came out with a literal chain leash. All right. Yeah, seriously. And the chain leash, obviously, is so they can't chew through it, right? They can't ingest it or anything. So, but yeah, I'm just going to start testing things here. Obviously, you see the teeth and stuff, right? Super touch sensitive, right? So I'm not doing anything aversive to this dog right now. This dog perceives that this is very aversive right now, right? But I've got to get this stuff out of the way right off the rip. And a lot of times this kind of stuff is not really correction based. This is not a, I need to correct this behavior. This is I need to show this dog that this behavior doesn't work, right? So this is where I start. This is where I start. Yeah, I'll survive. Appreciate it though. Now, obviously, be careful with the Baskerville muzzles. Technically speaking, the Baskerville muzzles are not bite-proof. So, you know, I've gotten bit through one of these before. You know, be careful with it. A lot of times, like with a dog like this, I'd maybe use like bite gloves in combination with doing something like this, you know, just in case. Right? But it's all fear. I mean, this dog is just terrified right now. You could tell. What's that? Yeah.
David, you're right?
Yeah, I'm fine. And this is where I start, right? I'll spend an hour and a half just doing this, you know?
David, after you do this for the first day, after an
Yeah.
hour, do you find they're comfortable with you in the same day, or does it still take a few days for them to be?
Depends on the severity. Like this dog, this dog obviously is pretty bad,
Yeah.
right? So, you may take a couple days before you really start making some headway with this, but usually you could make a pretty substantial amount of progress in your first day.
How did you get to this level when you're comfortable doing this?
Sorry, say that again?
How do you get to this level when you're comfortable doing this?
Doing it? Do you mean like literally just with any dog or with this dog specifically? Just doing it, It's one of those things where you really got to trust your safety protocols to your best of your abilities, Like I said, normally, like right now, you'll notice I'm holding the collar so that I can prevent the dog from really turning around and snapping at my hand too much. Because really, the only time you're going to get bit by a Baskerville is if your fingers go in it. So you'll notice I keep a fairly closed hand, like my fingers aren't out, right? And then on top of that, if they really press down hard enough where they can compress that muzzle, you can get a bite that way, obviously. So right now, since I don't have bite gloves, I'm not gonna let this dog really compress down enough on my hands where I would be able to get bit. So I'm pretty comfortable and confident because of that, right? And you got to test kind of all over with stuff because you'll notice certain spots are more sensitive than others, right? Obviously, the back for a little bit was okay, but then when I started moving to the chest, you see obviously how much the dog tenses up with it, right? So things like that, obviously, we want to make sure we're kind of starting to get past with this.
I've got a question.
Yeah,
So we had to get the muzzle on her just
Sure.
for day-to-day safety.
of course.
And it took us a couple days, and it was pretty brutal.
Yeah,
What would be your method? Because when I tried to get the muzzle on her, I have a very heavy-duty bike glove,
yeah,
and she bit my finger through the glove.
yeah,
And
Did it hurt?
Pretty bad. I thought she broke my finger. It was
Yeah.
really bad. And I've never had a dog do that
Sure.
through a bike glove.
yeah, yeah.
And it's like a double-layered heavy-duty one.
Yeah, and that was without the muzzle on, right? She didn't get you through the muzzle.
We got
Yeah,
it on
yeah.
5 minutes later.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, as you know, right, like, yeah, even with those bite gloves, like, it still hurts if they bite. So you know what I'll actually do? I'll use a bite sleeve, and I'll hold the muzzle through the end of the bite sleeve. That way I kind of have a little bit more protection. And then on top of that, I see you have these old-fashioned Baskervilles before they made that stupid plastic clip on it, which is ridiculous. So these, do you have another one of these?
Another basketball?
Another one of the old-style ones handy?
Maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah, a lot of the dogs break them.
Yeah.
We might.
Okay, so if you do, I could kind of show you how I would like rig it up where, if not, no big deal, I can kind of just talk you through it, but yeah, so.
Do you need leashes?
No, I just need the muzzle, yeah. But you see, obviously, like, we're nowhere near past it, right? But like, we got the dog at least becoming more comfortable with the contact and realizing a very important lesson, which is it didn't work. Right? I know you're scared right now, but that is not making me go away, which is a very powerful skill for these dogs to learn initially, Good job. And then I'll kind of stand up, stretch the legs before you get a bunch of cramps. And then you kind of reset, and then you repeat that drill a few times, right? So basically what you would do is you would buckle it as loose as you can, and then you could actually slip it over their head like you would like a collar and just have it hanging, right? So let's pretend this was hanging from the neck like this. The back strap was already connected from behind. And then with like a pair of grabbers or a bite sleeve, you could grab it and just set it there. And then once you get it to kind of set there, you grab the top and then just cinch up real fast like you would a slip lead. And then they'll usually fight it for a second, realize they can't get it off, and then you can clip it. Usually what I'll do is slipping it over the head, because obviously doing it with your hands is hard. Use the grabbers for that too. Yeah. Good job.
So she's 9 years old?
She is almost 10.
Yeah, she seems older.
Yeah.
She always like this?
Since she was 1.
And this is like, this is not something happened to this dog. This is bad genetics, That's what causes this kind of stuff.
Very like possessive.
Yeah.
Also nervous.
How much chance of a dog like this?
What was that?
What's your opinion
Sorry.
on that, David? When she goes home, what would you?
Whoo, success rate, you're asking?
Well, as in like, she's 10.
Yeah.
She's practicing this for 9 years.
Oh, yeah. That's a good question.
What's the,
Yeah. I think owner aggression success rate is very low, usually, right? Just because like it's so hard to manage in the house, right? Unless you're totally keeping the dog isolated from the family, you know? And I think in order to shift a really toxic relationship where the dog is biting and attacking you, and not just that, but seriously, it requires you to literally turn into a completely different person. You know what I mean? Like you have to transform into like the dog sees you as like not the same human being they saw before, which could be really challenging to do. So usually when we work with these cases, one, I'm generally pretty upfront with people about that prior to them signing up, you know, especially dealing with an older dog, right? Like how much of a financial commitment do you want into the dog that's older at this point, and your success rate is gonna be like, you know, not as high as it could be. And then from there, usually it requires figuring out how much management can we implement, you know, in order to avoid a lot of the problems that you're having, and where can we have the biggest like return on our time as far as if we get these two things under control, it makes their life with this dog 10 times easier. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a puzzle you got to play to some extent with that stuff.
You can tell them everything to do,
Hey,
and then at
come
home,
here.
they think
Sit.
the way they're doing it, they will hopefully really, really based on the owner. And then the other issue is the owner can do great,
Okay.
the dog can also do great. They make one mistake, and the consequences are that's all that falls.
That's a big component you got to weigh in. It's like, yeah, like if something goes wrong, how wrong is it going to go?
Like doesn't end in
Yeah.
facial surgery, like that's a pretty bad one mistake.
Okay. Sit. Good job. And then little by little, obviously, you just add some compliance into things. So go ahead. Sorry. Hey. Sit.
Any sort of like rule or general like system you have for like if you would ever recommend behavior?
Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure. It's on an individual basis, right? So, hey, good. It's on an individual basis. Like we've had clients put their dogs down for things that, in my opinion, are really nothing things. You know what I mean? But in their, hey, sit. But in their mind, it was just way too much risk for them. Like I had one guy that called me one time and said his dog that I had known for a long time, who was a pretty good dog, kind of like nipped his uncle in the stomach. He was like fearful the uncle was kind of messing with him, nipped him in the stomach. They just had a new baby. He said, nope, dog's got to go, right? And they wanted to put the dog down over it. And I was like, well, we probably could have managed this. We probably could have figured out an easier solution, obviously. And then I've also had clients who have had dogs that were truly attacking viciously them, right, or other people, and they're like, no, I'm not putting this dog down, right? So it's my job to give you all of the options. So if this dog's owner called me, I would lay out on the table, this is all your options on what they could look like, right? You could try training, right? We may be able to get to X point with it. Success rate is this. This is what could possibly happen if you screw up and don't do the things that I tell you to do. Euthanasia is an option, obviously. The dog's already old. How much money do you want to invest in things? Stuff like that. Or, you know, in my opinion, rehoming aggressive dogs is not on the table. I think it's a massive, just passive liability then at that point. But if you are going to attempt to do that, I always tell everybody it's got to be to somebody that the dog already knows. And my reasoning for that is because let's say they had an Uncle Charlie that has met this dog 127 times before. That he's already seen this dog at its worst. He knows exactly what he's getting into. There's a little bit more of an emotional investment into it from his end then at that point. So I think the risk is a little bit lower in those situations. But I just lay the options out for them, and I'm never going to tell you, yeah, you got to put your dog down or you should put your dog down. But I'll lay them out. It's an option on the table, and I don't think it makes you a bad person if you choose to do it.